The basilisk gate hung in space like a twisted crown of thorns, its crystalline spires pulsing with an otherworldly purple glow that made nearby stars seem dim in comparison. For 3,000 years, it had stood as the galactic hegemony's ultimate declaration of power, an impregnable fortress that had never known defeat. Until today, no species had dared to challenge it directly. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the UES Prometheus, her dark eyes fixed on the massive structure ahead. The bridge crew worked in focused silence, each member knowing that humanity's last hope rested in their hands. Earth's colonies had fallen one by one to the hegemony's relentless advance. Now, only their homeworld remained free. "Final system check complete," announced Lieutenant James O'Neill, his fingers dancing across the neural interface panel. "The wave matrix is stable. All sections report ready." Sarah nodded, feeling the subtle vibration of the Prometheus's quantum engines through the deck plates. The ship was unlike anything humanity had built before, not merely a vessel of metal and energy, but a symphony of human consciousness translated into warfare. Every system, every weapon, every shield had been designed to channel the chaotic nature of human thought itself. "Multiple contacts," reported Tactical Officer Mayapodal. "Hegemony warships deploying from the gate's primary hangar base. Reading 15. No, 20 vessels. Dreadnought class." A lesser commander might have shown fear. 20 dreadnoughts would have been enough to subjugate most civilizations. But Sarah had been chosen for this mission precisely because she understood what the aliens never could, that humanity's greatest strength lay in its unpredictability. "They're broadcasting," Maya announced. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the aristocratic features of High Commander Xarthol. His crystalline exoskeleton sparkled with bioluminescent patterns that signaled supreme confidence. "Unauthorized vessel." Xarthol's translated voice carried the weight of millennia of absolute authority. "You have entered restricted space. The Basilisk Gate does not accept visitors or supplicants. Deactivate your systems and prepare to be boarded or be destroyed." Sarah rose from her command chair, her movement deliberate and calm. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Prometheus. We're not here to submit or surrender. We're here to end your reign." Xarthol's bioluminescence flickered in what might have been amusement. "You think one ship, one primitive human ship, can challenge the Basilisk Gate? We have broken worlds, shattered stars. Our defensive matrices have calculated every possible form of attack. There is no variable we have not considered." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah replied. "You've calculated everything except the human factor." "Lieutenant O'Neill, initiate the wave matrix." "Maya, battle stations. Let's show them why they should have left Earth alone." The Prometheus's systems surged to life, but not in any way the hegemony sensors could comprehend. The ship's neural wave technology began synchronizing with its crew's brainwave patterns, creating a cascade of quantum possibilities that defied conventional physics. The vessel itself became an extension of human consciousness, unpredictable, innovative, and impossible to target effectively. Xarthol's first volley came exactly as their simulations had predicted, a perfectly coordinated barrage of quantum torpedoes and plasma lances. The hegemony believed in overwhelming force, in the mathematical certainty of superior firepower. But the Prometheus moved like a leaf in a storm, each evasive maneuver guided by the collective intuition of its crew. "They're trying to establish a targeting lock," Maya reported, her hand steady on her console. "Their predictive algorithms are failing to establish a pattern." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "They won't find one. Humans don't think in patterns. We think in possibilities. O'Neill, prepare the first counterstrike. Let's show them what Dr. Rivera's invention can really do." The Prometheus's weapon systems came online, but they didn't fire conventional ammunition. Instead, they broadcast waves of quantum energy that matched and then disrupted the Basilisk Gate's defensive frequencies. It was like introducing jazz into a perfectly orchestrated symphony. The chaos of human creativity meeting the rigid structure of alien technology. Multiple hits confirmed, Maya announced, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Their shields are fluctuating. They've never encountered anything like this. Through the view screen, Sarah watched as confusion spread through the hegemony fleet. Their perfect formations began to waver as the Prometheus's attacks defied their combat algorithms. For the first time in 3,000 years, the defenders of the Basilisk Gate faced an enemy they couldn't predict. Their main weapon systems are charging, O'Neill warned. Energy readings are off the charts. Good, Sarah replied, her eyes never leaving the massive fortress ahead. That means they're scared. And scared enemies make mistakes. All hands, prepare for Phase 2. It's time to show the galaxy why humanity never learned to kneel. The battle for the Basilisk Gate had begun, and with it, the moment that would define humanity's place among the stars. The hegemony was about to learn that their greatest mistake wasn't attacking Earth. It was assuming they could calculate and control the human spirit itself. 6 months earlier, Dr. Marcus Rivera stood in the ruins of the Lagos Research Center, his hands trembling as he held the crystalline data core salvaged from a downed hegemony fighter. Around him, the scattered remains of humanity's last major physics facility smoldered in the African heat. The attack had come without warning, a lesson from the hegemony about the price of continued resistance. They hit every major research center simultaneously. Colonel Chen, not yet promoted to commander, reported as she approached. Her uniform was still covered in dust from the rescue operations. Geneva, Beijing, Neo-Tokyo, all gone. We're the only team left. Marcus nodded, his eyes never leaving the alien technology in his hands. Then we'd better make this count. He placed the core carefully into a quantum containment field. I think I finally understand why we've been losing, Sarah. It's not about technology. It's about perspective. The holographic displays around them flickered to life, showing recordings of previous battles against the hegemony. Their ships moved with perfect precision, their weapons fired in mathematically optimal patterns. Everything they did was calculated, predicted, planned. Look at how they fight, Marcus continued, his voice gaining intensity. It's all algorithms. Perfect, yes, but soulless. They've turned warfare into an equation. But that's their weakness. They can't handle variables they can't quantify. Sarah watched as he pulled up human brainwave patterns beside the hegemony battle formations. And what variable is that? Consciousness itself. Marcus's eyes lit up with the fever of discovery. Human consciousness, specifically. We don't think in straight lines. Our neurons fire in patterns that quantum computers can't predict. What if we could weaponize that? Turn our very unpredictability into a weapon. That conversation had led to Project Prometheus, humanity's last desperate gamble. In the underground facilities beneath Mount Kilimanjaro, survivors from research centers around the world worked tirelessly to merge human neural patterns with quantum technology. The price had been steep. Each test had cost volunteers their minds or their lives as they attempted to synchronize human consciousness with weapon systems. Neural interface test 47 failing. Maya Patel had reported during one particularly devastating trial. She was still a cadet then, watching as another volunteer screamed in agony as their mind tried to merge with the quantum matrix. We're losing them. Marcus had worked through countless sleepless nights, haunted by the failures, driven by the knowledge that Earth's defenses were crumbling. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a childhood memory of jazz music. Music is mathematics, he explained to the project team. But jazz is controlled chaos. It follows rules while breaking them, just like human consciousness. We don't need to force our minds to work like computers. We need to make the computers work like us. Now, as the Prometheus faced the Basilisk Gate, all that research, all those sacrifices, were being put to the ultimate test. The neural wave technology didn't just control the ship, it allowed it to think, to adapt, to create like a human mind. On the bridge, Sarah felt the familiar tingle as her consciousness merged with the ship's systems. Around her, Her crew experienced the same sensation. They weren't just operating the Prometheus. They were becoming it, their collective creativity and intuition flowing through its quantum circuitry. Second wave of hegemony ships approaching. Maya reported, her voice steady despite the neural strain. They're adjusting their attack patterns based on our previous movements. Let them, Sarah replied, feeling the ship's systems respond to her thoughts. They're still trying to find patterns where there are none. O'Neill, initiate the Chaos Protocol. The Prometheus's quantum engines pulsed with new energy as the crew's neural patterns cascaded through its systems. The ship began moving in ways that defied conventional physics, each action guided by human intuition rather than computer logic. Through the neural link, Sarah could feel the confusion and growing fear of the hegemony forces. Their perfect formations began to break as the Prometheus danced between their shots, retaliating with weapons that drew power from the quantum uncertainty of human consciousness itself. Multiple direct hits on their secondary defense platforms, Maya announced. Their predictive systems are failing completely. They can't target what they can't understand. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile, remembering all those who had sacrificed everything to make this moment possible. Begin Phase 3. Let's show them what humanity's really capable of when we're pushed too far. The Basilisk Gate's crystal spires pulsed with increasing urgency as its defenders faced, for the first time in their history, an enemy that their algorithms couldn't defeat. But the true test was still to come. As Marcus had warned them, the price of freedom would be paid not just in blood and sacrifice, but in the very way they thought about reality itself. The next phase would push the neural wave technology to its limits, testing not just the strength of the Prometheus's systems, but the resolve of its crew. The question wasn't whether they could survive. It was whether they could remain human while becoming something more than human had ever been before. High Commander Sarthol's crystalline exoskeleton crackled with agitation as he watched his perfect formations crumble. In 3,000 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like the human vessel. It moved like a dancer in a gravitational storm, each maneuver defying the Basilisk Gate's most advanced prediction matrices. Impossible, he hissed, his command staff shrinking back from his fury. Access the archive. There must be a pattern, a weakness, something we can use. But the archive, the vast quantum database containing every battle strategy ever conceived by the hegemony, had no answers. The humans weren't fighting according to any known doctrine. Their ship's movements resembled organic thought patterns more than military maneuvers. Aboard the Prometheus, Commander Chen felt the neural interface deepening as the ship's systems adapted to its crew's collective consciousness. Every officer on the bridge had become part of something larger, a hybrid of human intuition and quantum mechanics that was rewriting the rules of space combat. They're trying to adapt, Maya reported, her eyes glowing with neural feedback, detecting multiple targeting attempts using revised algorithms. They're learning, but too slowly. Sarah nodded, feeling the ship respond to her thoughts. That's their problem. They think this is just about technology. Show me the fortress's power distribution. A holographic model materialized, showing energy flowing through the Basilisk Gate's crystalline structure. The fortress wasn't just a military installation. It was a living computer, its crystalline architecture designed to process and respond to threats. But like all computers, it thought in binaries, in predictable patterns. Look at those energy flows, O'Neill observed, his consciousness merging with the ship's sensors. They're like neural pathways, but rigid, unchanging. Exactly, Sarah replied. Dr. Rivera's theory was right. They built their fortress to think, but they taught it to think like them. Maya, prepare the chaos pulse. All hands, brace for Phase 3. The Prometheus's quantum core began to pulse with new energy as the crew's neural patterns were amplified and transformed into weapons. They weren't just firing energy beams or torpedoes. They were broadcasting human consciousness itself, introducing chaos into the fortress's rigid thought patterns. Inside the Basilisk Gate, Alarms began to blare as systems started behaving erratically. Defensive turrets fired at phantom targets. Shield generators fluctuated in impossible patterns. The fortress's crystalline mind, confronted with human unpredictability, began to show signs of confusion. "What are they doing to us?" Exarthul demanded, watching as his impregnable fortress began to behave like a malfunctioning drone. "No weapon can penetrate our defenses." "Sir," his science officer reported, mandibles clicking in distress, "they're not trying to penetrate our defenses. They're infecting them with chaos." The Prometheus pressed its advantage, each crew member's consciousness contributing to the assault. Sarah felt Maya's tactical brilliance merging with O'Neill's intuitive understanding of spatial dynamics. Their combined consciousness flowed through the ship's quantum circuitry, becoming a force that the hegemony's logical systems couldn't comprehend. "Multiple systems failing within the fortress," Maya announced, her voice tight with effort. "Their primary defense grid is showing signs of cognitive collapse." "But," she hesitated, "our neural load is approaching critical levels." Sarah felt it too, the strain of maintaining such deep synchronization with the ship's systems. Human minds weren't meant to operate on this level for extended periods. Dr. Rivera had warned them about the risks of neural burnout. "Hold position," she ordered, fighting through the mental fatigue. "We've found their weakness. The fortress can't adapt to human thought patterns without compromising its own operating principles. We're not just fighting their technology. We're fighting their entire worldview." Through the neural link, she could sense the growing panic among the hegemony forces. Their perfect world of predictable causes and effects was being shattered by human chaos. Ships began breaking formation, their commanders unable to cope with an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable strategy. "Sir," O'Neill called out, his voice strained, detecting massive energy buildup in the fortress's core. They're trying to reboot their entire system." A smile crossed Sarah's face. "That's their biggest mistake yet. You can't reboot consciousness. Maya, all power to the neural wave emitters. Let's show them what happens when you try to quantify the human spirit." The battle had entered its most critical phase. The Basilisk Gate's very consciousness was at stake, its crystalline mind struggling against the invasion of human chaos. But the Prometheus's crew was also approaching their limits. The question wasn't just whether they could defeat the fortress. It was whether they could survive their own impossible tactics. In the space around them, reality itself seemed to waver as human consciousness clashed with alien logic. The next few moments would determine not just the outcome of the battle, but the future of human evolution itself. The hegemony was about to learn that there were some forces in the universe that couldn't be calculated, controlled, or predicted, and humanity was chief among them. The Basilisk Gate's crystalline surface began to fracture, hairline cracks spreading across its massive structure like a spiderweb caught in starlight. Within its depths, countless enslaved species watched in awe as the impossible unfolded before them. Humanity's lone warship bringing the galaxy's greatest fortress to its knees. Commander Sarah Chen's consciousness flickered through the Prometheus's neural network, feeling every strain and stress in both ship and crew. The neural wave technology had pushed them far beyond normal human limits, but they were approaching a threshold that no one, not even Dr. Rivera, had been able to calculate. Neural load at 92% capacity. Maya managed through gritted teeth, her hands trembling above her console. Brain activity in all crew members approaching danger levels. Through the quantum link, Sarah could feel her crew's pain and exhaustion. Their minds had been merged with the ship's systems for hours, broadcasting chaos into the fortress's rigid patterns. The human brain wasn't meant to sustain this level of cognitive integration. "Commander," O'Neill's voice was barely a whisper, detecting unusual activity within the fortress. "The enslaved species, they're fighting back." The tactical displays showed new chaos erupting throughout the Basilisk Gate. The Prometheus's attack hadn't just damaged the fortress's systems. It had shown the imprisoned races that their captors weren't invincible. Rebellion was spreading through the structure like wildfire. Inside the fortress's command center, High Commander Sarthol watched his perfect world crumble. The crystalline panels surrounding him pulsed with warning signals as multiple sectors reported simultaneous uprisings. The hegemony's careful calculations had never accounted for this possibility, that their own slaves would dare to rise against them. "Seal all containment sectors," he ordered, his exoskeleton crackling with fury. "Initiate emergency purge protocols." But the fortress's systems were too compromised by the Prometheus's neural assault. Commands that should have been executed instantly were met with delay or confusion. The crystalline mind that controlled the Basilisk Gate had been infected with human chaos, and now it couldn't distinguish between friend and foe. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, "the fortress's quantum core is showing signs of cascade failure. The human ship's attack. It's not just disrupting our systems. It's teaching them to think differently." On the Prometheus's bridge, Sarah received the same readings. The fortress's rigid mathematical consciousness was being overwhelmed by the introduction of human thought patterns. Like a computer forced to process poetry, it was experiencing something akin to a mental breakdown. "Maya," Sarah called out, fighting through her own neural fatigue, "target their main power distribution nodes." O'Neill prepared to broadcast the Liberation Protocol. The Liberation Protocol was the riskiest part of their mission, a concentrated burst of human consciousness designed to completely overwrite the fortress's operating principles. Dr. Rivera had warned them that it could just as easily destroy the Prometheus as the Basilisk Gate. "Neural load at 95%, Maya warned. "Commander, if we attempt the protocol, we might not survive it." Sarah felt the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. Through the neural link, she could sense her crew's determination mixed with their fear. They had all known this mission might be one way, but facing that reality was different from accepting it in theory. "Look at the fortress," she replied, her voice steady despite the strain. "We've shown every enslaved species in there that the hegemony can be beaten. If we stop now, they'll all die for nothing." Besides, she managed a grim smile. Humanity's never been good at calculating odds. The decision made, Sarah opened her consciousness fully to the ship's systems. Around her, her crew did the same, their minds merging more completely than ever before. The Prometheus's quantum core began to pulse with unprecedented energy as it prepared to broadcast not just chaos, but the full spectrum of human thought and emotion. "All hands," Sarah broadcast through the neural link, her thoughts reaching every crew member. "It's been an honor. Let's show the galaxy what humanity really is." The Liberation Protocol initiated with a burst of pure quantum energy. The Prometheus became a beacon of human consciousness, broadcasting not just tactical chaos, but the full depth of human experience: love, hate, joy, sorrow, hope, fear, all the contradictions that made humanity unique in the galaxy. The effect on the Basilisk Gate was catastrophic. Its crystalline architecture, designed to process pure logic and mathematical certainty, was suddenly flooded with the raw essence of human emotion and creativity. The fortress's rigid consciousness began to fragment as new patterns of thought emerged within its quantum matrices. Throughout the structure, imprisoned species felt the change. The fortress's control systems, overwhelmed by human chaos, began to fail. Force fields collapsed. Detention levels opened. A wave of freedom swept through the ancient structure, powered by the same unpredictability that had made humanity impossible to conquer. High Commander Akhtar Thol watched in horror as his perfect fortress began to tear itself apart from within. "What are you?" he broadcast to the Prometheus, his voice thick with incomprehension. "What kind of species would sacrifice everything just to destroy order?" "We're human," Sarah replied, even as warning signals screamed about critical neural load levels. "We don't destroy order. We create new kinds of order. The kind that embraces chaos instead of fearing it." The battle had reached its final phase. The Basilisk Gate's destruction was now inevitable, but the price of victory would be higher than anyone had imagined. As the fortress began to break apart, Sarah Chen and her crew pushed themselves beyond their limits, knowing that their sacrifice would reshape the galaxy forever. In the space around them, reality itself seemed to hold its breath as humanity's greatest gamble approached its climactic conclusion. The Basilisk Gate's final moments painted the void with crystalline light, its massive structure breaking apart in a display that rivaled the death of stars. But unlike the cold mathematics of stellar collapse, this destruction followed no predictable pattern. The fortress died as it had been defeated, in beautiful chaos. Commander Sarah Chen could barely maintain consciousness as the neural wave technology pushed her crew's minds to their absolute limits. Through the quantum link, she felt every officer struggle, their collective will holding the Prometheus together even as their bodies began to fail. Neural load at 98%. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Commander, we did it. The fortress. It's breaking apart from within." Through the breaking fortress's shattered communications network, thousands of voices began broadcasting. The imprisoned species celebrating their liberation. Races that had known nothing but servitude for generations were tasting freedom for the first time, their combined voices creating a symphony of joy and disbelief. High Commander Carthol stood in his crumbling command center, watching as 3,000 years of hegemony dominance literally shattered around him. The crystalline panels that had once displayed perfect order now showed only chaos. Beautiful, terrible, human chaos. "You don't understand what you've done," he broadcast to the Prometheus, his voice mixing anger with something approaching awe. "Without our order, the galaxy will fall into anarchy." Sarah forced herself to focus through the neural strain. "No," she replied, her consciousness flowing through the ship's systems one last time. "We're offering something better than your kind of order. We're offering choice." The Liberation Protocol had done more than destroy the fortress's systems. It had fundamentally altered its quantum consciousness. The crystalline architecture that had once processed only perfect mathematical patterns was now alive with new possibilities, learning to think in ways its creators had never imagined. "Commander," O'Neill called out, his voice weak but urgent, detecting massive energy signatures. "The fortress's quantum core, it's not just breaking down, it's evolving." The tactical displays showed something unprecedented. The Basilisk Gate's destruction wasn't proceeding according to physical laws. Instead, its crystalline structure was reorganizing itself, guided by the echoes of human consciousness that the Prometheus had broadcast into its systems. Dr. Rivera was right, Sarah realized, watching the transformation unfold. "We didn't just teach it to think like us. We taught it to grow." The fortress's remains were becoming something new, a quantum structure that embraced both order and chaos, logic and emotion. The very architecture that had once imprisoned countless species was transforming into a bridge between different ways of thinking, different ways of being. Through their neural link, the Prometheus's crew witnessed the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history. The rigid barriers between organic and artificial consciousness began to blur as the fortress's quantum matrices learned to process not just data, but experience. "All surviving hegemony vessels are standing down," Maya reported, her voice growing stronger as the neural load began to decrease. They're requesting permission to approach, not to fight, to learn." Sarah felt the change in the enemy ship's energy signatures. The hegemony forces weren't just surrendering. They were experiencing their first taste of true uncertainty, and with it, the beginning of wisdom. "Neural load stabilizing," O'Neill announced. "The fortress's transformation. It's reducing the strain on our systems. It's helping us." The realization spread through the crew's linked consciousness. They hadn't just won a military victory. They had sparked an evolution in consciousness itself, showing both organic and artificial minds that there was strength in uncertainty, beauty in chaos, and freedom in accepting what could not be calculated. As the Basilisk Gate's remains continued their transformation, ships began arriving from across the galaxy. The news of humanity's victory had spread faster than light itself, carried by quantum communications networks that the hegemony could no longer control. Representatives from 100 species came to witness what human unpredictability had wrought. "Commander," Maya called out, her voice filled with wonder, "receiving transmissions from Earth. The other hegemony forces, they're retreating. Not just from our system, but from all their conquered territories. The Empire, it's over." Sarah Chen finally allowed herself to relax in her command chair, feeling the neural link gently disengage. Around her, her crew began to emerge from their deep integration with the ship's systems, forever changed by what they had experienced, but still fundamentally human. "Send a message to Earth," she ordered, watching as the transformed fortress began to pulse with new life. Tell them humanity just rewrote the rules of the galaxy, and we did it not by becoming stronger than our enemies, but by showing them a better way to think." The space around them continued to shimmer with crystalline light as the former fortress became a nexus of new possibilities. Humanity had not just defeated an empire. They had introduced the concept of beautiful uncertainty to a galaxy that had forgotten how to dream. As the Prometheus prepared to return home, Sarah Chen looked one last time at the transformed structure that had once been the galaxy's greatest fortress. In its new form, it stood as a testament to humanity's greatest gift to the universe, the understanding that true strength lies not in perfect order, but in the courage to embrace the unknown. The human age of the galaxy had begun, not with conquest, but with liberation. And in the quantum dance of order and chaos, a new kind of civilization was about to emerge, one that would change the very nature of consciousness itself.